Always good to see a company that's raised previously on just an idea actually continue to lean in and actually develop a functional prototype. Welcome to the Investment Roundtable. This is Kingcrowd's weekly podcast into the latest in the equity crowdfunding market. So today we're going to dive into a company called Qnetic. I'll let Leah explain everything the company does, but they play in the renewable energy space, which I think is interesting overall market to analyze these days, especially with new president coming in and obviously different opinions in Washington on renewables and the future there. So we'll pass it over to Leah to introduce Qnetic.
Thank you, Teddy. So this is Qnetic, a short-term energy storage solution. Qnetic basically is a huge rotor that can go underground and store electricity overnight on renewable energy farms. Currently, this is a problem that is being addressed by lithium-ion batteries that everybody knows. You have lithium-ion batteries in your computer, in your phone, in an EV. However, these batteries, even if they can store energy on renewable farms, they bring a lot of problems. As you may know, lithium-ion batteries degrade over time. The battery of your computer is not as good now as it was when you bought it a couple of years ago. What that means is that when these farms, wind farms, solar farms, spend a lot of money in getting a lot of lithium batteries so they can still send energies at night or during peak hours, while the amount of energy of electricity that they can actually store is going to degrade over time. The problem with that is that they basically are losing money. And every 6 to 10 years, they need to replace the entire fleet of lithium-ion battery. That's where Qnetic is coming in. This mechanical battery that you're seeing here, which is basically a top in the vacuum, which is held by two magnets right here to reduce friction, can store mechanical energy during up to 12 hours. And in order for the central to just get back the electricity, they simply need to connect to the top of the of this flywheel to produce electricity back by converting the mechanical energy into electricity. And this is very exciting because this flywheel can solve a lot of the lithium-ion problems, which are not only the degradation and the cost problem for energy farm, but also the environmental footprint that lithium-ion battery production have, where we're talking about CO2 emissions, we're talking about pollution over the world because of the different mineral extraction that is needed. Lithium-ion also have a high risk of fire, which can be an additional risk onto these types of farm. So that's what Qnetic is doing. The reason why we like Qnetic is because the company already raised back in June 2023. And at the time, it was only a research-based company. They had the idea, the drawing of the flywheel, but they didn't actually produce that flywheel yet. In only 1.5 years, they was able to raise from significant venture capital investors like SOSV and Hacks, and they have been able to build the first prototype of the flywheel, demonstrating that doing this is actually possible. So Qnetic has been able to build this human-sized prototype that we can see right now on the screen. That's the first step for success. The second step is going to be for them to build a prototype that will be a quarter of its final size, so about 500 kilowatt hour big, and send it to potential clients. Now, when you may be wondering, what's the path to commercialization for Qnetic? Well, in this case, it's very exciting because Qnetic already has more than 100 million in letters of intent signed from potential customers all over the United States, but also all over Europe. So for those who may not know what an LOI is, and if that's really something we should actually be looking at, that is actually important for a company, Teddy, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so letters of intent, they are a wide range of seriousness, I would say. Some LOIs that companies tout as having signed they don't necessarily mean anything. They can be in the very, very early stages of talking with potential customers, and it might involve a very extensive and expensive roadmap between getting from like signing to an LOI and generating revenue from the LOI. So it's always important to look or ask more in depth on what's the nature of the LOIs, who are the companies that have signed them, and is there actually a path to converting that into revenue? So I don't know the specifics of Qnetics. It seems as though these LOIs, I don't know if they necessarily mandate the testing of the prototypes, but at least have a very kind of relatively quick timeline to deploying these prototypes to potential customers that have signed these LOIs. But I don't know if you have more info on these specific LOIs.
Yeah, based on what we heard from the founder, these companies, at least a couple of them, including MMWEC, for example, which is providing electricity in the states of Massachusetts, they're going to be receiving the prototypes from Qnetic as soon as it's going to be built in 2025. And from there, there's actually an actual chance of signing a contract. So as you're saying, a lot of LOIs can just never happen. But in this case, we have potential customers that for some of them are already using flywheels, just way smaller flywheels, and who are actually interested in testing the product and who will have a significant economical benefit if they were to sign up with Qnetic. Because instead of having to change the lithium-ion batteries every 6-10 years, they could actually keep the same flywheels for 30 years. And so in terms of long-term cost, it just makes more sense. What's very exciting as well is that Qnetic is planning on commercializing its flywheel at the same price as lithium-ion batteries. So it will be a similar initial capital cost for these renewable farms or for anybody who needs to store energy, but on the long term, it's going to be way more financially beneficial. Now, obviously, Qnetic can only thrive if there is a growing demand for energy and renewable energy. So, Scott, can you tell us more about what's the current state of need of energy in the United States? Do you see that growing, and do you think that Qnetic has a chance on this market?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I need to be the person to point out to everyone that everything you hear on every station everywhere is AI and LLMs and data compute and cloud storage and local versus cloud access. And right now, today, as of recording, Bitcoin is at 94,000. So now we're talking about a reinvigoration into crypto and mining. And half of the big crypto firms that we used to talk to all the time that were all in the business of custodying Bitcoin and Solana and Ethereum and all these other things, like they're all in the mining business. And all of this takes compute all day long, which if it takes compute, it means that someone's computer is running. And if the computer is running, someone's got to power it. And you've got, Facebook, Meta, and Tesla and Elon Musk talking about building literally their own nuclear power, independent power plants because they recognize the infrastructure is not there. I can't remember this exact number, but it was something like by 2030 or 2027, we're already going to be out of power, like relative to the growth rate of compute and usage for it versus what we have available in infrastructure. We are SOL. Like if we don't, which is not going to happen. It just means people are going to invest a lot of money. And I forget the exact location or whatever it was, but it was one of the recent big summits. And Oracle founder was talking about his meeting with Elon Musk and with Bill Gates and a few others talking about an NVIDIA CEO basically just talking about how many chips they want to buy. And that if you wanted to have one platform be like the winner take all scenario, which is why everyone's investing in OpenAI at 157 billion or whatever it is, then it's about infrastructure. Who has the access to the power that is never disrupted? And I think the number he said was like $100 billion is the cost that is going to happen. That's a lot of money. And that just means that there's like, maybe someone will fork it over, but like, it just means that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to try to make that number go down or to get their chunk of that money. And so all of this goes down to like, is there a single energy source to power it all? I doubt. Is it nuclear? Is it renewable? Is it like, can we this is just me, the person who knows absolutely nothing about energy, and the engineering behind it. But like, I have to imagine a plant that's using solar or wind and has the ability to store that overnight and make it immediately functional, so that like basically yesterday's energy is tomorrow's energy, and so on and so forth, for 30 years without having to replace it, and without having to rely on battery to be your energy source, storage, and unit of how it's conveying the energy back to the user. During the nighttime, it's not working, but like in this case, it is, right? Because it's on this like flywheel cycle. If that is true, it has to provide a massive efficiency. If nothing else, like you talked about, Leah, it is cheaper cost than the battery. We haven't even talked about the mining for precious metals, and there's an entire world around this that is very political to avoid that topic. But just to point a light on it, China has a pretty huge advantage when it comes to the material part of this. And I don't know if anyone's paying attention, but the socio-political climate there, not great. And so like, I think you see guys like Elon Musk working on building their own source of power, almost more important than the chips itself. Because if I can get the power, then I can build a more efficient chip, then I can provide more efficient, more powerful, more sustainable compute. All of that comes back to the energy source, to me, at the end of the day. And so if someone is able to actually make a more efficient source of energy that is more cost effective and less difficult to get access to, that will be a huge player, and there'll be many of them. It'll be a huge player, even if it's a bit part of this future world that we're all going to live in, where currency and data is being mined and stored and electronically used 24/7, and all of the models that power the workload and the think that goes on in our businesses through AI. And we haven't even talked about robotics and autonomous vehicles and whatever. Like think of, not to keep going here, but like think of just another area with cars in the autonomous driving world and robotics working on plants and in fields. Like, they're all going to have a solar energy component. They're all currently battery operated. If there was a way to somehow shorten that cycle and give all of those tools even cheaper and longer use, there's a huge opportunity there. And I don't know Qnetic's ability to develop that and to actually land these LOIs. I don't know. I saw one of them was like one of the largest customers of Tesla. I don't know, all of the pieces that have to happen to become a successful company. If the technology underlying is actually what they say it is and it's capable, and these companies are putting their name on it to say that they think it's viable, well, then this could potentially be a huge business. I think the only thing that, and I'll hand it back to you guys, the only thing I think stands out to me is the amount of money that I am hearing a lot of this stuff is costing, and the funds that I know who are in the renewable energy space. Raising $675,000 is not going to get it done. Now, it probably is just to get from stage 1 to stage 2 and then land some LOIs and then got capital, and then they'll go get real money at a larger round. All this kind of stuff will happen. But like, I would, as an investor, I would be most interested in understanding exactly what stage in the game they're at and how this money can get them to the next stage and why it's such a great value opportunity for me.
This is a great point that you're bringing, Scott, because this is actually just a small portion of their raise. Given that they have raised the first round mostly on ECF, they wanted to be able to raise again on WeFounder, allow people to follow up on their round, but they're actually raising $4 million. And on this $4 million, 35% is going to come from a previous VC investor that is reinvesting in this round at the same valuation of $20 million than the WeFounder raise. And this investor is SOSV, which is a big deal in the Qnetic space. And they also have a couple of the VCs that are already on the round. So it's very likely that they're going to close basically that $4 million round. So I completely agree with you. $600,000 is not enough. The good news is current investors are investing again in this company, showing that they've made a pretty good progress.
Nice. And I don't know if you just want to lastly hit on kind of as Qnetic fits in this space. Does it work with like all renewable energy sources? Are there some that it works better with or that have shown more interest, companies within those specific renewable spaces, or is it really meant to be all encompassing of the industry in terms of storage.
So technically, the way it works, they just take electricity, convert it into mechanical energy by getting that flywheel to spin, and then they take the mechanical energy, convert it back to electricity, which means we don't care whether it's coming from solar or from fossil fuel as long as there's electricity that is being stored. Now, I think the question here is who are the customers for this product? We're mostly going to think about renewable energy farm that have intermittent energy sources. By intermittent, I'm thinking about solar, which only shines during the day, and wind, which mostly blows during the day. These farms want to be able to sell the electricity that they are sometimes overproducing during the day, either during peak hours. So when, it's 5 p.m. and everybody comes back home and turns the heater on or the aircon on and plugs everything and start cooking, you need a lot of electricity, but at the same time, the sun is going down. So in that case, you're going to need to have electricity that is stored and be able to send it back to the grid. The other use case is to actually use that electricity during the night when these renewable sources are not working. Unfortunately, right now, there's a lot of electricity companies that have to turn on the natural gas plants in order to be able to give electricity at night or during peak hours to their customers. And that's a problem because it's obviously extremely polluting. The other advantage of Qnetic is that it will allow utilities to not really depend on the volatility of fossil fuels prices, but also lithium prices. Like Scott just mentioned it, lithium is a product that is just extremely demanded across the world. There's only a couple of producers that are in certain regions of the world. So any geopolitical problem or any spike in the demand can increase the price considerably. When we talk about Qnetic, they're using everyday material like carbon fiber. So they're not really subject to this type of price volatilities.
Always good to see a company that's raised previously on just an idea actually continue to lean in and actually develop a functional prototype. Well, great. Anything else from Leia, Scott, that you want to hit on Qnetic?
I think the only thing that we should probably talk about, I don't know if we really talked about the price of it. We should go through that a little bit on the actual deal. I think just in general, I think that there's going to be, this is one of those investments where I can't tell you that Qnetic is the one or that I know about their technology. It is, to me, a foregone conclusion that we will have a way to recycle energy 24/7, that there will be a way to solve that solar happens during the day and certain times of the year as wind is higher and this and that. It's kind of funny, but when you talk about the materials for mining lithium, the same problem exists for every source of energy that we have, because the how we pull energy is inconsistent, whether it's wind or it's sun or it's light. It's not something that's 100% all the time on, and this is how we get. So we're always trying to solve these problems by creating ways to manufacture efficiency. So I don't know that they're the one, but I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion that there will be a one or a many, and that it is, in order for us to move into the next world of technology in a day-to-day basis, this problem has to be solved one way or the other. Whether this is the way, I don't know. But one way or another, this is something that a lot of people are putting a lot of money and attention on. So I don't think it's wrong to be looking to invest in this kind of a space. I don't know if you're getting the right company, but it's, for sure, it's the tailwind, pun intended, couldn't be stronger.
Yeah, Leia, do you think it's a winner take all type of situation here, or do you think this technology is defensible enough in the way Qnetic's advancing it to be the major player?
Yeah, I'm not really personally seeing this as a winner take all market. For the main reason is that there's just so much demand for energy storage solution. When you think about it, energy storage has been a problem that we've been trying to manage for the last decades and now century. Just think of dams that are built all over the world. These are one of the major source of energy storage that are available to us right now. This is kind of an indirect competitor to Qnetic. You have lithium-ion batteries. You have heat-related storage. There's so many solutions that have different use cases. At the end of the day, Qnetic's ability to take over the market is going to be related to its manufacturing capacity, to its capital. And I think that the market is large enough that several competitors can all thrive and all generate great returns. If you take a market like, solar panels, residential solar, you can see that there are different companies that are thriving in that market, have different geographic preferences, have different types of customers. And so this is going to be the same for Qnetic. Investing in Qnetic is investing in one of the potential winners. But we're not in a market where there's going to be only one winner, and we're not in a market where competition is extremely risky. I actually like competition in this market because I think it really brings innovation.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, Scott, Leia, really appreciate it. Very interesting deep dive into a company in this space that I think has a lot of room to grow, and as Scott said, will really kind of the way of the future, kind of this move to renewables. And while it will be expensive, I think is still an exciting kind of journey to follow and be involved with. So anyways, thank you both. Thank you for listening to our listeners. Thank you for being here. And we'll see you next week for another KC Roundtable.